All right. Cavs rookie then spoke to the media, and it's time for us to talk about it. That's coming up next on the Ultimate 216 show. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Earl of Pearl. I am your host of the Ultimate 216 show. Joining me today, he's with me every day, my right-hand man, Mikey McNuggets. As always, man, don't forget to subscribe, like, ring the bell. Make sure you tell a friend about the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We appreciate you for supporting that. All of our spinoff shows. I know my man had a fire Ultimate Cavs show. If you didn't watch the live draft, the reaction to the pick, I encourage you to go back and check that out, man. We got a lot of content for you, and we about to break it down. So the Cavs rookie Jaylon Tyson, man, he spoke to the media today, Mike. And I'm going to tell you, for a dude that I did not know nothing about 24 hours ago, I'm sold. I'm locked in. Like, you did an incredible job breaking down a lot of film, showing what his pros is, what his cons is. We've talked to a lot of people who's worked with him one-on-one, who've seen him a lot. And then just to hear him speak today, it kind of solidified everything for me. Let's start off with this. This was a dude that we didn't expect the Cleveland Cavaliers to even be considering with the 20th pick. For all the research that you sit here and do, for all the players that you sit here and you break down tier by tier, you had him on your list, but it wasn't a guy that we really dove deep into. To take people behind the scenes, I make graphics for these prospects every single day, and his name never came up on the radar.
Nope.
But I think where we kind of dropped the ball is we all know that the Cavs is in a win-now situation. This is a team that's trying to go chase down the NBA champion Boston Celtics and win another title. And it makes all the sense in the world for them at pick 20 to get the most ready-made player that can step in and have an immediate impact right away.
Yeah, well, first off, let me start. My first time on 216. Thrilled to be joining you. I appreciate the invite. Long
Absolutely.
overdue, by the way. So I feel bad because I feel like you and Ant were supposed to talk sports movies today, but material changes. Sports movies can wait for another week. In terms of the Tyson pick, and I'll be honest, I have not heard his press conference yet. I'm going to have to go back and listen, but I've heard rave reviews. I just saw a couple quotes on Twitter. Seems like a big personality guy. As soon as Donovan Mitchell signs the extension, which he hasn't yet, and I fully expect him to do, until that happens, the Cavs are not in win-now mode. As soon as Donovan puts pen to paper and announces that he's sticking around Cleveland for the next foreseeable future, at least in terms of the contract, the Cavs have no choice but to be in complete win-now mode. And when you look at some of the other players who were available at the wing position, and we could argue back and forth, is Jaylon Tyson a big guard or a small wing? Guess what? It's the same damn thing. So you're arguing, essentially yelling into a vacuum and a void that means nothing. He's the same size as Jaylen Brown. Is Jaylen Brown a guard or a wing? He's the same size as Isaac Okoro. Is he a guard or a wing? It depends on the player, not necessarily the measurables. But he's a guy who could step in, and the guys rated at the wing position higher than him, like Kaishan George, who's a 6'7" guard, Johnny Furphy, who's a 6'9" wing. Those guys are coming off their freshman seasons at Miami and Kansas, respectively, who Cleveland clearly felt was not ready to step in and be an immediate impact and potential rotational guy. I don't expect by any means Jaylon Tyson to come in and compete for a starting spot right away. However, I do expect him to come in and compete for a rotational role alongside Okoro, alongside Karis LeVert, and alongside the other quote-unquote big guard / wings the Cavs currently have, Earl. And when you're assembling a roster, we just saw the Celtics who won the championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
The day after they won, I was on the panel, and I asked Jason, how many shot creators do the Celtics have on the court at any given time? And at minimum, they have 4. At minimum. In the Cavs starting 5, you have Darius and Donovan, and that's it. Strus is not a shot creator. Mobley, Allen, not shot creators. You can never have enough shot creators on your roster. And with his body, his age, his development as a 3-year college player, he brings a ready-made skill set to the NBA, and he projects as a shot creator. So do I love the pick? I would have preferred Jerron Holmes, if we're being totally honest, but I certainly understand the thought process that the Cavs went through to eventually land on Jaylon Tyson being the 20th pick in the first round.
All right, so I'm gonna throw a couple things at you. I listened to the press conference. I thought he sounded very confident. I thought he sounded very eager to get
You
to work.
said, Earl, he said he wants to be all NBA defensive team right away.
He says he wants to make the all defensive team. I don't know if he referred to the rookie team or all NBA
There's only
team.
one all defensive team, and he was a defensive
wants-
guy in college. So I hope if he says that, at least he understands where he needs to work on. I like the self-awareness.
Yeah, so a couple things, and we're gonna start with that.
Shoot. Yep.
The first thing he said was, they asked him what his goal was for this year, and he said to make the all defensive team. He talked to immediately getting to work on working on the defensive side of his game. He understands that's an Achilles heel and something that he needs to work on. He also said that he wants to win a championship his rookie year. He said that's not something that often happens, and he think that would be a pretty cool accomplishment. He also alluded to the fact that he thought, 3 schools in 3 years was just a part of God's plan, and things worked out to where he ended up right where he needed to be. Then he also alluded to that he knew a breakout season was coming for him when he went to Cal. When you talk about what he can bring to have an immediate impact, the floor spacing, to be able to create his own shot, the three-point shooting ability, to be in your favorite attribute of his, to be able to cut. All those things right there, it gets me excited about him just stepping in and learning his role. This is what Kobe Altman had to say. He said, the thing that I know is we could throw him on the NBA floor tomorrow, and physically he can compete. He can play, and in terms of how he fits, that's more of a Kenny question. Me and you talked this morning. The last time the Cleveland Cavaliers drafted a player that had an NBA-ready body was Isaac Okoro. This dude is physical. We've had some other conversations like this dude is strong as an ox. And, he seems to take basketball very serious. He talked about basketball being a passion, the love, and not everybody can say that they really love this game. And when you really love something, like me and you both know, when you really love something, the amount of work or the extra mile that you're willing to travel that nobody else is usually the differential, the thing that, that separates you from you to that next person.
Yeah, his journey throughout college was interesting. He started at Texas, then went to Texas Tech, and then he ended up at Cal. And in today's day and age, transfers, you're allowed to transfer. The NIL and the bag is a real thing. Players who had a terrific experience at a school can leave because another school is going to offer more money. And you see it in football. You see it in basketball. The starting big man for Illinois last season, who was a solid player for the Fighting Illini, who was projected to be their best player coming back, just left Illinois to Kansas State because he got paid $2 million in an NIL deal. I do the same damn thing. So I don't think transferring to 3 schools in 3 years is exactly has the same bad connotation it used to have. I'm not 100% sure what Tyson's story is, Earl, on the transfers. Jason alluded to a coach saying some racist remarks at one stop. I'm not sure when it happened. I know when he was at Texas, Chris Beard then left, so they had a coaching change. So there's more reasons to that than the 3 schools. But from what you're talking about in terms of his press conference, it seems like he's pretty aware and pretty in tune with what he needs to work on to continue to develop as a overall and complete basketball player. And you mentioned Okoro. It's funny because there was one website that compared Jaylon Tyson to Isaac Okoro as his NBA comp. And, I didn't do a ton of research on Tyson before. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, goodness. And then within watching 30 seconds of tape, they don't play the same whatsoever. And that doesn't mean he's better than Okoro, and it doesn't mean he will be better than Okoro, but they just have completely different games. And frankly, if you could combine the two, you're looking at a guy who probably would have been the first pick in the draft this year. So individually, if he could increase his defensive acumen and get his lateral quickness up to a point where he's staying in front of some of the quicker, shiftier wings, because strength I don't think is going to be an issue for him. Western Conference coach described him as, quote, strong as an ox in workouts. So I don't think strength's an issue, Earl. It's more the lateral quickness. But if he's willing to buy into that end of the court, defense is 70% mentality and 30% physical skill. And if you know you have to lock in on that end of the court, you are more than capable of holding your own against most guys in the league. Luka Doncic is a perfect example of that. After he got torched by Brian Windhorst in Game 3, are you surprised he had his best defensive performance ever in Game 4? No, it's because he actually gave a rat's ass and gave 2% effort. It's not hard to give more than 0%, and Luka doesn't. And at Cal, Tyson was asked to carry the entire offense, similar to how Luka was asked to carry Dallas. So I'm not shocked that he wasn't labeled a great defender coming out of college because he was carrying such a high offensive load. Listen, he can step in and play right away, and at least he can compete for a rotation spot right away. We'll see how much money, how much run he actually gets in terms of their playoff rotation or whatnot. But at the end of the day, Earl, it's a 20th pick in a bad draft. If you can get a guy you think can play, regardless of position, big guard, wing, whatever it is, that feels like a win at 20. Now, he still has to prove he can play.
Right.
You're drafting a guy that you at least think can step in and immediately contribute. To me, even if it's a little bit of a reach in terms of where he was consensusly ranked versus where the Cavs selected him, I totally understand the thought process.
And we're going to get into that in a quick second, man. Make sure y'all are out there smashing the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Thank you for joining the Ultimate 216 show. Drop any comments that you have for McNuggets while he's here in the chat. Any thoughts on what you heard from the press conference? Any thoughts that you have on the Cavs' latest rookie? We'll read those at the end of the show. I do want to start talking about the developmental side of things. Let's start with this right here. I got some of your videos in here, but before we get to that, this was some of the grades of the picks, right? And it depends on your perspective on how you assessed him, how you've evaluated this guy over his 3 years in college. You see it ranges anywhere from an A- to a C-. And so this is what we have. Now, one of the things about Kenny Atkinson, the motion offense, right? We already know that Kenny Atkinson was a defensive-minded coach. He spent a tenure with the Golden State Warriors, so he truly understands, and I think he has developed an offensive system here. You've done a great job laying out what that system looks like. But the other thing that we talked about was he was elite with player development.
Yep.
Player development doesn't start or stop with just Evan Mobley, right? You can now throw Jaylon Tyson's name into that hat. You can throw Craig Porter Jr. in there. Of course, Imani Bates' name, Sam Merrill even, right? Let's start off with the things that he does well. This is a slide of him cutting right now.
Great off-ball mover. And it's surprising for a guy. You think James Harden, right, Earl? A guy who's an offensive-centric guy who needs the ball in his hand, and when he's not involved, he just stands in the corner and doesn't contribute whatsoever. That's not the case with Tyson. And I think although Atkinson didn't really have a large say in the draft pick, he literally just got to town yesterday. He was overseas helping coach Team France for the upcoming Olympics. I think he has to be excited at Tyson's willingness to cut and move off ball and his willingness to be a factor when he's not the guy bringing the ball up court and the offense is centered completely around what he's going to do on that individual possession, because it's not something you see quite frequently, especially considering how much of an offensive load he was asked to carry for the Golden Bears. When those possessions are running through somebody else, a lot of times he may have been just trying to catch his breath, like take a few deep breaths, get a little recovery and stamina back. But no, he was involved, engaged, and willing to cut. And I think that translates directly into what Kenny Atkinson is trying to do on offense.
And speaking of more offense, let's go into his shot making real quick. Now, this is something that, look at him. He's creating space. He pure shooter, right? And this is where me and you both was like, there's no way in hell you can be comparing him right now to Isaac Okoro. Like, Okoro is not doing any of what he's doing right now. Taking his opponent off the dribble, this is like poetry in motion right here.
Yeah, it's pretty. And when Okoro was coming out of college, you hoped he would develop an offensive game like this. And so far, he hasn't. He had the physical skills, but just that hasn't been what he's kind of gotten good at in the NBA. He's a really good defender. Offensively, still very much a work in progress, which is kind of the opposite of Jaylon Tyson here, who, as you see, against Pac-12 competition, it's a Power 5 conference, is really comfortable going left or right off screens, comfortable with the ball in his hands. He's able to create space off the dribble. We have another clip which shows some of his more attacks. These are more of his pull-up jump shots and three-point montage. But he's not scared to shoot. When you are asked to carry such an offensive load, every shot looks like a good shot to you because that is what you're attempting to do. The team knows that you have to score if they're going to have any chance. I just got a report from Woj that said trade and Davion Mitchell, and I thought it said Donovan Mitchell, and my heart just stopped, but it is Davion Mitchell. He's getting traded to the Raptors. No need to worry. So if you got that report too, calm down.
We was about to be here for another hour.
Not our Donovan. That is Davion Mitchell who got traded. But back to Tyson. He's a guy who, when the defense knew late in a game, if Cal needed a shot, it was going to him. He was still able to create space, still able to get a decent angle to get a shot up. He shot 46.5%, from the floor, 36% from three. Not the greatest numbers, but certainly not something to scoff at, considering the amount of volume he was taking and the level of difficulty of those shots. So, yeah, like I said, if you were looking, I said this on the show today, if you were looking for the Cavs to get a big 6'8", 6'9", physical, imposing wing in the draft, you're waking up today sorely disappointed. If you look at Jaylon Tyson through the lens of a potential Isaac Okoro replacement, a potential Karis LeVert replacement, another shot creator to bring off the bench to help make that second unit gel and mesh together offensively and give you a little more scoring burst, then Jaylon Tyson's a perfect pick at number 20.
So a lot of the talk has been, he has a slow release. And, I play a lot of 2K. I watch a lot of basketball, etc. Slow release is not it's not the best thing in the world,
No.
but it's not a career killer, right? So I want you to explain to people why this is not the biggest problem in the world and why this is something that our new head coach, Kenny Atkinson, can fix.
Yeah, Earl, let this loop when it ends. Just play it again so I could talk through the whole thing. But his release is not horrific. It is not like, oh my God, that's incredibly slow. It's never going to work in the NBA. It's just not quick. And if the best shooters in the league, Steph, Clay, Strus has a really quick release, Buddy Hield, Sam Merrill, lightning quick release, like those guys catch it and it immediately goes up. Tyson seems to gather, rise, and then shoot. And I don't know if you played again, people could see it. It's not an instant motion. It's a catch, rise, and then fire. Now you can work on increasing your speed of shot of your release. That is something you can drill and work on and improve upon. Guys do it all the time. When Steph was drafted, he's the only guy I think I've ever seen where his release was already elite and has gotten quicker. But Klay Thompson's a guy who's gotten even better where you're not bringing it down and you just catch and let it fire without the motion of bringing it up. Part of it is off passes. If the pass isn't in the right position, it takes a little longer to center, but that's a perfect example in the corner of what the difference of a quick release versus slow release is. If the slow release on the NBA level just gives defenders more space to close out, get a finger on it, make it a more difficult shot. But the good thing is because of Tyson's ball handling ability, Earl, his ability to create space, he's getting enough separation from his defender to still get the slower shot release up. Now, NBA defenders are more athletic. They're usually longer. They're usually quicker. So a quicker release will allow him to beat some of their closeouts and contest. But it certainly is not a career ender. It is certainly not, we can't touch that guy. His release is terrible. It is not a Tim Tebow throwing motion that can't be fixed. It's just something that needs to be tweaked as he continues to progress as an NBA player. It's certainly something to have a red flag about. But it's not like an end-all, be-all. This guy can't play in the league. His release is horrifically slow. It's just a little slower than you'd like.
Yeah, facts. So listen. Before we take our last break, I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this pick. I know we got the NBA draft day 2 coming up later. After watching your beautiful breakdown, after, watching some film myself, after actually listening to him talk, I'm sold on this pick. Mm-hmm. 1, he has an NBA-made body. 2, he has a skill set that the Cavaliers need, and he fits a role in this new system. And I believe he complement players that's already here. Okay. And I think that when you hire a guy like Kenny Atkinson, it proves to me that you can get more out of what is already an unfinished product. Because anytime you get one of these guys, especially in this particular draft class, you have an unfinished product. You know that there's a lot of untapped potential there. And if our new head coach specialty is player development, then it makes me even more confident with this pick. Another part of this, and Jason alluded to it earlier today, this is the last time that the Cavaliers have a first-round pick for a while. Yeah. So it was necessary to
have their own first-round pick.
Have their own first-round pick, should I say. That can change. But as of now, this is what it is. And so for you to be able to, get a player like this who can help you right away and that can still be developed, and a guy that sounds like he's very self-aware of what his flaws is, a guy that seems like he's very passionate about the game of basketball and that's already talking about being an elite defender and winning championships, the fact that you have winning a ring in your mouth already, it says a lot about your state of mind. And anybody that's talking like that and that's willing to put in the work, sign me up. Your final thoughts on that before we take this last break.
It wasn't my preferred choice. DaRon Holmes was on the board, and I thought DaRon Holmes was in my slam dunk prospect category, Earl. So I'm not going to lie and say I think this is a home run draft selection at 20, but I do think it makes perfect sense when you consider all the factors that went into drafting Jaylon Tyson, the skill set he brings to the team, the fact that he's NBA ascendant. You hope he's NBA ready now. He projects as an NBA ready now prospect, which fits the current timeline. And at the end of the day, I keep going back to this. It's a bad draft, and you're picking 20th overall. Keep your expectations in line for Jaylon Tyson to that. If you're expecting a star with 20, I don't care what draft you're in, you are probably going to be disappointed. If you get a contributor at 20, that's a pretty good draft pick at the end of the day. And I do think Jaylon Tyson has all the makings and the tools, Earl, to be a legitimate contributor to an NBA team at some point in his career, and hopefully earlier than sooner, considering he spent 3 years in college. Also, last thing, he went from averaging 1.9 points as a freshman to 10.7 points as a sophomore to 19.6 points as a junior. The guy has gotten better every season he's played, and I don't think he's going to average 26 points a game as a rookie by any means, but this guy did not come out of nowhere. He was a solid player at Texas Tech and then became a very good collegiate player at the University of California.
All right, there it is, man. So if you got any questions for my man Mikey McNuggets, if you got any thoughts or just things you want to get off your chest regarding the newest Cavalier, Jaylon Tyson, or anything that you heard from the press conference, drop that in the chat. We'll read those to wrap this show up right after this break. But first, if you're trying to get to a Cleveland Guardians game, when they come back off this road trip, they got to go take care of the Kansas City Royals first. You can save up to 60% off by buying last minute for the game. All you got to do is just take the guesswork out of buying with the Game Time app. Download that app right now, create an account, and use locked on code NFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's locked on NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Mike, you ready to read some of these comments, man?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's start off at the top here. It says, would you all trade Imani or
Little
Mobley for a second round pick?
Can I start on that?
Yeah.
If a team would take Isaiah Mobley for a second round pick, I would do it before they could even hang up. Listen, Isaiah Mobley, I don't think will ever be a real factor in an NBA team or an NBA environment. Great guy to have around as a vibes guy, but the Cavs have enough vibe guys. They need guys who can play. And I know it might upset Evan Mobley, but if you get another second round pick, I would make the deal. Someone on the stream asked me last night, if Imani Bates was in this draft class, where would he have gone, right? Mm-hmm. And I texted the two guys I know best in the league who I could ask them essentially anything and get an answer for, because some guys you text and they're like, I'm not giving you that much thought. Like, you're a nobody, which I know I'm a nobody. But I did get two answers, and I'll read them both for you. One NBA coach said might have been a borderline first. So late first, early second. He was drafted 49th last year. So I think his value is actually higher than a second round pick this year. And another NBA team said, it's a good question. Who knows for sure, but I would guess he wouldn't go that low. So I think Imani Bates is actually worth more than a second round pick in this year's draft. So I would keep Imani. I would not trade him for a second. I would trade Isaiah Mobley for a second in a heartbeat. Speaking
of second round picks, we got this one that says, will we trade for a second rounder today? I hope so.
Me too. And listen, I'm all for Bronny James, but a more realistic target, Earl, Jalen Wells out of Washington State. I was told he absolutely crushed his workout for the Cavs. When they had much higher ranked prospects in town, it was Jalen Wells out of Washington State that stole the show.
All right. This one here says, literally no one says, Hoops Wire reporter Donovan and Stan and Atkinson was his preferred hire. What's your thoughts on that?
I fully expect Donovan to stay, and Jason has reported that he signed off on both Atkinson and Borrego. So whether it was his preferred or not, who knows, but he definitely signed off on it.
We got this one here. Peacock says, what happens if a team picks Bronny that Bron doesn't want?
Gonna piss off Rich Paul, and that's really all they can do about it. So
that's it. I do like what Bronny had to say. He said, man, don't draft me because of who my dad is. Draft me because you want me on your squad.
Yeah.
I thought that was the realest thing he said throughout this entire process, man. I'm rooting for Bronny, by the way.
I'm too.
I know, like, he's catching he kind of like Caitlin Clark in that sense. You catching a lot of unnecessary strays for whatever variables that's totally out of your control. So.
Here's part of the issue with Bronny, and I'm rooting for him because he brought none of this upon himself. We, as the media, have brought this all on Bronny, and frankly, it's not fair to Bronny. But because this draft is so boring at the top, Earl, because the two top players were from Australia. Well, he played in Australia. Risa Shea is from France. The collegiate crop was weak. It's just a weak draft. The biggest story was Bronny. If Bronny was in last year's draft with Scoot Henderson, Wemby, and Brandon Miller, it would be an afterthought. But because there's no one at the top of the draft here that people want to talk about, seriously, do you know what Risa Shea's game is at all, Earl?
No.
Do you know what Alex Sarr's game is at all?
Not at all.
That's my point. So, we focus on Bronny because he's the biggest and most interesting name, and he did not deserve the treatment he got throughout this process. And I do feel bad for Bronny, and I hope wherever he lands tonight, he has a successful career in some capacity. I really do.
Just curious, what's your thought? Is it the Lakers?
I'd be surprised if he's not a Laker at 55.
I think if it's not the Lakers, I could see Dallas or Phoenix.
He only worked out for Phoenix or LA. So we will see. The Dallas thing would be funny. The Dallas one would be funny.
It would. That definitely would. Brad says, what did Brad say? Let's see what Brad had to say. Brad says, do you guys think S&T with Okoro would be a possible asset to use now that we have someone like Tyson?
It's definitely more possible. I think it gives the Cavs more flexibility if someone tries to sign Okoro to an offer sheet that they don't frankly agree with. You could let him walk and not feel as empty at the position. They don't have a defender like Okoro. Tyson is not a defender like Okoro yet. Maybe he can become one, but currently he is not. So it gives them more flexibility, but I'm not quite sure what you're getting back in a sign and trade for Isaac Okoro. If a team wants Isaac Okoro, they're just going to offer him an offer sheet the Cavs won't match.
Yeah, I think, this show is about Jaylon Tyson, but there's so much content that we're going to have to get into. I do like the pick. You're going to hear me use words like, player development a lot. It's because, that's one of the reasons why he's here, meaning Kenny Atkinson. But I do believe that player development stretches so much further than this current first-round pick. I am really interested to see what year 2 of the Amani Bates experiment looks like with another head coach, with a different coaching staff that specializes and prioritizes and developing players. I'm interested to see what Craig Porter Jr. develops into. If the Cavs hypothetically was to keep this core together, you alluded to the fact that they need a guard out there that's a facilitator first, not somebody that's out there looking to get a bucket. And I think that's what Craig Porter Jr. is. And so when you look at the player development side of things, there's a few guys, and now you can add Jaylon Tyson to this list of players on the Cavaliers roster that have a whole lot of potential, a lot of raw talent, and they just need to learn how to be pros and use everything that they have and continue to develop. And if we got the right coach, and if a lot of people believe that Kenny Atkinson can, get it done this time around, then it'll be interesting to see how all these players, kind of come into their fold and just gel within in this organization and find their role on this team.
It's going to be a fun offseason, Earl, one way or another. And July 6th is when it all becomes officially official. And hopefully we have some Donovan Mitchell news that he is signing an extension and it is officially guaranteed in the very near future.
Facts. And we're going to end with this. I just seen this. I think we got some Guardians news. Your thoughts on this? Guardians are about to sign Matthew Boyd.
I don't remember Matthew Boyd whatsoever, but Jason texted the group chat and said, the guards are signing Matthew Boyd, who was good 5 years ago. And then Bull said he's never really been that good, but no harm, no foul. They need an arm.
Hey,
so there you go.
There it is.
There's your Guardians 30 seconds from me and Earl.
There it is, man. Until next time on the Ultimate Lord have mercy, on the Ultimate 216 show. Remember, man, be great, spread love. Being great come with a price. Spreading love is priceless. Congratulations to you on that Emmy. And thank you all again, man, for all your continued support. Everything that y'all do for the main show, for the spinoff shows, the support that you show us all individually, man. We love y'all just as much as y'all love us. Thank you so much. Till next time, and my guy, we are out of here. Peace.
Peace.